So Coneygree, the novice, moves to the front over the second from row to riches.
It's all a little bit of a fairy tale, really.
Coneygree.
He was quite a special story, the fact that he was a novice, he'd had his injuries. The Gold Cup is the best of the best.
Coneygree gallops on remorselessly, leads by 2.
He was scared of nothing. What we dreamed and really believed could happen, had happened.
And Coneygree, inexperienced, no object, a novice, the first for 40 years, won the Gold Cup.
We bred Coneygree we bought the brood mare as something for my father to enjoy when he retired. So it's all a little bit of a fairy tale, really, because we bought her for a couple of grand and bred all these fantastic horses. Coneygree, as a baby, was this absurd, long-legged creature with no hair. He had sweet itch. So he was very much an ugly duckling. It wasn't very long after we started riding him that we realised that despite being weak and wobbly, he had extraordinary stamina. When we first knew how good he was, I suppose the first novice hurdle he won at Cheltenham was quite a surprise, and everybody said that he'd gone a real gallop.
You all right, boy? The first time I came across Coneygree was probably when he was a novice hurdler. He was a bit of a surprise package, I suppose. You didn't really expect this big, raw racehorse from a small yard to make such an impact. And he was very, very talented from a very early age.
You can see the camera now, stick his ear. Over fences, he won at Kempton in what's now the Corto Star. Novice chased by miles. And everybody said it was because all the others had fallen over, but the jockey said no, nothing could go that fast. So we began to think maybe he was not just good, but something extraordinary. Now, the first injury happened very early. The first injury happened before he ever ran. He was just starting work, and he went lame behind, so we sent him off. I mean, he's a real advertisement for bone scans, because we'd have killed him many times, but he went off for a bone scan and we found a stress fracture in his tibia, which happened twice more. And when he came back the year that he famously wasn't allowed to run at Plumpton, when he was completely okay, the point was he'd been off the track for 2 years because he'd had a stress fracture, then he cut into a back leg. He was always very fragile.
Yeah, I got a chance to sit on Coneygree. Obviously, he'd already won a novice chase. Poor old Nicola de Bonville picked up a suspension, so he was unavailable, and yeah, I was lucky enough to get the call up to ride him in the race at Newbury, the Denman Chase. And I got to sit on him the week before, came and rode him in a schooling session just to get a bit of an idea what he was like. But yeah, very, very straightforward, and again it was sort of a privilege to ride. Obviously a great phone call to get to know when you're going to pick up a spare ride like that.
When Richard rode him, that was what made us decide really to run him in the Gold Cup, because that was his first go against the older horses, and he beat something on Houblon des Obeaux, who was sort of nearly Gold Cup, but he murdered him. And Aidan Coleman said on the way in, that horse will win the Gold Cup. Do you remember that, Richard?
I think after the race at Newbury, after he won the Denman Chase, I was lucky enough to ride him that day, and honestly, the feel he gave me, I was genuinely surprised and a bit shocked how professional he was for a novice, taking on the open horses, and obviously, the way he jumped and travelled, I was really taken with his performance. But obviously it was still a big question whether you should go for the novice or the Gold Cup itself. And fair play to the Bradstocks, I think it was a brave move to go for the Gold Cup, but obviously they knew him better than anybody else.
I think Mark counted over 100 emails saying that we were cruel and we were idiots. Ted Walsh said, when asked about Coneygree chances in the Gold Cup. He said this is Cheltenham, not Disneyland.
You know, it was a big decision, but you know, I think, obviously they made the right decision, and I think they got a lot of flack for it, and I think that was a bit unfair. If I hadn't known he was a novice, after riding him, I wouldn't have, you'd have never thought that.
He was fragile. He was very well. He'd won so fantastically, impressively at Newbury. He was fit and healthy. So to me, why would you run in the Sun Alliance and win it and think I could have won the Gold Cup?
Flag raised, and they're off and racing. The Roar heralds the start of the Betfred Cheltenham Gold Cup.
The Gold Cup is the best of the best. You know, everybody, doesn't matter if you're English, Irish, French, everybody wants to win the Gold Cup, and for me it's the pinnacle of our sport.
First did his road to riches out there early with Coneygree as they head towards the first.
I was in the weighing room watching the race. You definitely felt a little bit part of the story, and again, Cheltenham is all about stories, but obviously he was quite a special story. The fact that he was a novice, he'd had his injuries.
Coneygree out in front from Road to Riches on his own on the outside, just ahead of Holywell as they reach the first, moving away from the stands.
I genuinely don't remember watching the race. I remember him going up the running and just complete...
Coneygree bidding to find a rhythm out in front.
Total disbelief.
So beginning the descent now for the first time, Coneygree it is who shows the way. Coneygree.
From the flagpole, to be honest, as soon as he jumped the first few fences, he got in a great rhythm.
Coneygree, with the echo of the roar of the stands now dimming in his ears, turns away on the final circuit.
Nico, who was riding him, you know, knew him really well. He just got in a really good rhythm.
Coneygree, Road to Riches, Jack Adam the youngster on the inside, Nico de Boinville and Coneygree lead by 2.
And when he jumped the last in front, I knew he'd win because he just keeps going.
Coneygree carried towards the last by the roars of the crowd, comes in one final leap.
I generally thought the top of the hill for the last time, I thought, God, they'll do well to get by him because he stays really well.
And now the hill for the novice, Coneygree, the jumping's behind him.
Nico actually had a dislocated shoulder, and so everybody made a lot of why he suddenly hung right. That arm was quite badly injured. He only told us this after.
And Coneygree, inexperienced, no object, a novice, the first for 40 years, won the Gold Cup.
What we dreamed and really believed could happen, had happened.
Yeah, I think Coneygree, it was 1974, was the last time a novice had won the Gold Cup. So I think that it itself just proves how hard it is and what a great performance it was.
It was just wonderful because we'd done what we said we were going to do. And, you know, we are just a little yard. He's my friend. He's part of the family.
The fact that, you know, he overcame an awful lot of things sort of against him, the lack of experience, coming from a small yard. I think it was just a huge performance and a great story at the same time, and that's the one thing that makes Cheltenham.
We have never managed to have many horses, so to make ends meet, it's all hands on deck. It's always been a family affair. There's no time for rest. It was just good because everything had happened that we dreamed might. We retired him when he ran at Ascot. Nico said that he felt that this was the moment when he really got going and that he was holding on to something. And, you know, he is just my mate Max. So there wasn't any question that we'd go on. He's done a little bit of showing. He had a lovely time at Kempton because he led the parade and then cantered back down to the start behind them. And he genuinely thought he was a racehorse again. He was absolutely full of himself. He kicked the box the whole way home.
It's great to see Coneygree today, 10 years on from the race. But again, you know, you see Sara riding him herself, still a massive part of their yard. From him being born to still here today, you know, it's a great story again. And I think, you know, it just shows how much love and care, you know, he's given, and, you know, he's a huge part of their family, really.
A lot of people wrote to me after he'd done his day of ambassadoring saying could they come and see him. And I'm thinking I might try and keep him in all his luxuries, set up a Coneygree fan club, and people can come and feed him polos and get newsletters, so that's my latest idea with him. Keep him in all his finery that he needs.
Hi, I'm Richard Johnson, and thanks to Genting Casino, you could find yourself at the heart of the action on Cheltenham Gold Cup Day. Genting Casino have got 5 VIP tickets to give away for one of the biggest days in racing. With a 4-course lunch, complimentary bar, a celebrity tipster, and above all else, you can watch the 2025 Cheltenham Gold Cup in the flesh. And here's how you can win. What a fantastic opportunity to watch the Cheltenham Gold Cup from the privileged suite. Head over to gentingcasino.com to get in the running.